just to go through what is the driver's speaker's vehicle. So the speaker's vehicle is a way of learning how to get into that driving seat and be able to drive your communication, be it in a conference, but it can also be in a presentation or even a classroom or in a networking event with a glass, drinking, or way of finding confidence to be able to speak. So the first week, we actually talked about, so I've given the anagram of seat, the seat being the body state, so as in the state of how I stand. Then there's expression. Today we're going to be talking about advise, and next week we'll be talking about how we transmit a message. So we're 10 o'clock on the dot. We're very Swiss today, aren't we? Very Swiss, starting right on time, 10 o'clock. So how was the weekend? Did you have a good weekend?
Oh, me, I was participating to a very intensive event in Geneva for the 5 years of a podcast from the African diaspora. So it's always a lot of things to learn from them. And
podcast is also a way of speaking and having to, you know, with the microphone. So you're speaking through a microphone and getting the message across. Podcasting is, I like to listen to my podcasts in the morning. So when, you know, having breakfast and organizing myself, I can listen to somebody explaining or giving some points.
And I was interviewed for a postcard from somebody from the US. And you see the way we interact with US-based people is not the same we do in Europe. So that was quite fun. So I will listen to the podcast. It will come in 2 or 3 days. So just to see.
It's definitely, the Americans have a different way of working, visualizing, even paying, because they all live on credit and, you know, they pay with their credit cards, where here in Europe, it's, you know, a totally different concept, but they push the economy. I'm not sure if they push it in the right way, but they do push the economy because they're forcing people to spend money and to move on. Whereas here in Europe, we're a lot more conservative and credit is only given if we have gold in the banks. So they don't give more than what's in the banks, especially after what happened in the crisis of 2009. So I made a little bit of a visual because I had a few comments about, can I have something more visual? Although for me, it's important for you to be listening and perhaps writing notes, because I feel that when you write notes, it's how things get downloaded into your brain. I always say that to my students. Reading and writing, it's a way of charging the brain and getting more information in there. So, but I will give again at the end of this session, I will also give out a PDF which resumes the key points that I will be talking about today. So let's get back into the driver's seat. Thanks everybody for the feedback. I got some really interesting feedbacks in the form. What I find interesting is that it gives me structure and allows me to answer those questions for the preparation of this session on the Monday. So the feedback for me is very important because it allows me to guide the course and to be able to really reply to your requests or your queries. We had a live question and answer session and certain people came on. I know perhaps my timing's not the best. We're going to have to see if that's the best time to be able to be running a course. We have to make a choice. So I made a choice for the morning. So the driver's seat. What is the driver's seat? The driver's seat is the state, the body state, its expression. So what I've done is I've even written each week. So the state was the body stance, how you stand, how you hold yourself straight, how you stop moving in front of the camera, how you look towards the audience with a peripheral vision so that you have everybody around you. The power stand, Amy Cuddy's power stand, which gives you confidence and lets your brain believe that you are actually confident. And then we talked about the voice, how the voice can have so much power, how to bring rhythm, how to move up and down our tonalities or prosodies. We can go really fast to give some idea of excitement, or we can slow things down, and then the power of the pause to allow people to really understand what we're saying. So the voice is a really interesting tool, and you've got to use it. You've got to bring in the power with that voice. The second week, we talked about expression. How do we express ourselves? How do we use the language of leaders? So there's lots of techniques, trying to avoid the ums and ahs. I'm not brilliant, but I start to get understanding and I hear them and I'm like, oh my God, I've said another I've got to try and see how to remove that and have transition phrases. How am I going to move forward? Let's start now on the next topic. And then I talked to rhetoric tips. And rhetoric is the art of speaking as a leader. In England, it's only taught in Eton, which is a very elitist private school. And in fact, 90% of English politicians come out of Eton School. So it's really something that politicians use a lot. So there's 3 key words that you repeat because it's compelling, convincing, and credible. 3 beginning statements that I repeat again and again. So I'm talking about speaking, I'm talking about language, and I'm talking about using your voice. 3 times I repeat that opening phrase. It gets people to get it to sink in. 1, 2, and 3. 3 balancing statements. So it's not that I want you to follow what I say, but I want you to follow what I do. I want you to find things in the, we're talking not of the past, but we're talking of the future. These balancing statements, because our brains have actually 2 sides, and that 2 sides to the brain, when you give it balance, people think that you're also giving something that's truthful. Metaphors, in English, we use a metaphor every 16 words, which is quite impressive. Exaggeration, more in certain languages than in others or cultures. So I exaggerate, I was so nervous coming today. And rhythm, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know why everyone thinks that is something to do with balance. So we're going to be talking about advice, and I will show that afterwards. First question was, what types of presentations can I have? Well, there are many presentations. There's a business pitch. We sometimes call it an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch, obviously, for the business coaches, for the people that are around the business world and startups, is that pitch that's going to get people to perhaps invest in your project. And why do we say elevator? Because we imagine that you step into an elevator, the doors open, and in walks in, I don't know, let's say Bill Gates. And Bill Gates says, oh, and what are you up to? And you have 1 minute or 2 minutes before that lift gets up to the floor that Bill Gates is going to get out to convince him and to give him your card or to give him your name and to say, you know, my project is. There's a sales pitch. You want people to buy your product. And several people were asking about how do you organize or structure a sales pitch so that people are going to buy at the end of talking. There's that presentation that could have a high impact in a company or bring around change. So there's a lot of change management and facility management of trying to get companies to improve themselves. We're going into a recession. And so this recession, everybody's frantic to try and improve processes, improve productivity, improve performance, and perhaps reduce certain costs. So presentation could be very important within a company or a structure. There could be leadership, communication, inspirational, you know, how to inspire to be a leader, how to get the right mindset, how to feel the passion, how to move forward. So there's a lot of communication around leadership and inspirational mindset. You may be at a conference, but as a participant, and you want to do some business networking. Who are you going to speak to? How, when you're standing there with all these people around you, how comfortable or uncomfortable do you feel to go up to somebody you don't know and say hello? You might have to give feedback in an interview, from a job, or feedback to somebody who's done a presentation. I'm asking you to give me feedback. So how do you give feedback so that it's constructive and that the person doesn't take it personally? That's one of the biggest problems, is the ego. We'll talk about ego. A job interview. Goodness, a lot of people really tremble about a job interview, and they're sitting there and they're worried. So the first thing you've got to do is have that power pose so that your body is already registering a certain confidence before you get into that interview. How do you prepare? Training the trainers. So there are some people that will actually be training trainers to teach them to be able to teach something else. I was coaching the trainers of fragrances for many years. They know about training, but how do you give them tips? How do you make them feel more comfortable to be able to go out and do their work? And then there's this new digital environment about training on video. How do you do it? How do you stand? How do you talk to a camera? It's less interactive than when you're talking to a person. And how do you go through with a video sales or a video webinar? So those are all the different types of presentations that one can have, but there is always the same fundamental process of how you're going to go through it. So I talk about advise, and I'm going to do another anagram. I like anagrams. So A is for the attention. I want to capture the attention, and the hook. The Americans say it, what's the hook? As in a fishing hook. How do I stop them from scrolling? How do I stop them from talking? How do I get them to listen to me? D is how do I define the client's problem? Because you're going to have to listen. We'll come into all of this little by little. V is how do I visualize the outcome? How do I get my client to visualize the outcome of where I'm taking him? And I is the illustration of that path, a bit like the bridge. I'm unhappy and I'm happy, and I'm going to take you across, and I know the way because I've already done it. So I'm going to show you that way. I'm going to solve the obstacles and the limiting beliefs. So I can't do this. So when I'm going to be giving my speech, I'm going to solve their questions before they actually come to it. And then E is for engaging the action, call to action. So for those that like something written, I've written it very badly because I wrote it a bit fast yesterday. And we'll go into how we go about this. So advise is attention, define the problem, visualize where we're going, the goals, illustrate that there is a path and that I know that path and I'm going to take them on that path. I'm going to solve their problems by speaking to them and their limiting beliefs before they actually start getting it. Oh, but I'm not good enough. But well, I've gone through that so that they can't say to me, oh, I can't. And then I'm going to engage in action. We always need a call to action. Americans say CTA. I'm not sure if we say that very much here in Switzerland, but call to action is very important to get people to move. If you want to create change, you've got to get your customer, your client, your audience to take action, to move forward. Otherwise, you're just filling up space and giving noise, but you're not helping them to get somewhere. So what do we mean about attention? Well, we need to prepare and we need to know what we're actually looking for. If I'm giving a sales presentation, what am I selling? What do I want somebody to do at the end of my presentation? Do I want them to call me? Pull me up, book an appointment? Do I want them to give me their email? Give me your email and you'll get a free freebie. We call this lead magnets. Do I want them to invest in my business? My business solves this problem and this, and this, and I'm looking for a new partner, 20%. We'll go into that. But you've got to know what is the outcome that you want from that talk, from that speech, from that discussion. If it's just getting information from the other person. So if you're going to a conference, who is going? Have you looked at the list of participants? Is there somebody in particular that you want to know who's there? Do your homework. Don't just walk in saying, hi. You've got to prepare even a conference or a business meeting. Try to find out more information. So we're going to go through what the Americans say, the hook, the story, and the call to action. So it's how we go through this process to grab the attention of our customers or our speakers and our audience. So a hook is a way of stopping people moving on. We are bombarded by advertising, by pictures, by images, by news. In fact, I read this morning that we spend 4 hours or 1 hour a day scrolling on social media and 3 hours on the television. That's 4 hours a day of nothing. How do we get people to actually stop and listen to you with all the other noise that's going on? So we need to try and find out, what does our customer want? What is our ideal client? And what is his fears? And we touch on that. Are you frightened of speaking in public? Are you frightened of... Try to find out, to stop him in his tracks. Guess what? You can start talking without the fear of standing up on stage by practicing or giving a tip. And by making that hook really, I like to say the word sexy, but I mean sexy as in it really captures their attention. You can combine it with world affairs. Today, there's a crisis going on. How do we get our message across? Today, climate change is... Everybody's suffering climate change. There's no snow. So how do we get people to? Remember, when you're making a hook, you've got to think of it two ways, because people are attracted towards pleasure, but they will walk away from pain. And if you only talk about the pain, if you only talk about the problem, you're losing 50% of the audience. So you have to be able to give a hook that's going to give the two sides, attracting for the pleasure and removing the pain. But if you only talk about the pain all the time, and we see this quite often, oh, this is that, and oh, there's that problem, and oh, there's that problem, and I'm going to help you solve it, you're not always necessarily going to be attracted, especially if you're somebody that likes to go towards pleasure. So remember that in your hook, people's decisions will be 50% towards pain, away from pain, and 50% towards pleasure. So in your hook, you've got to try to grab both of them, because otherwise you're losing 50% of your audience. There's the next step, which is the marketing term of an open loop. So what does that mean? Well, these marketing gurus, they give us a lot of terms. Well, do you want to find out how to speak better? I'm going to give you all the tips just in a moment. Let me present myself. So you give some information, you give them the hook, they're interested, but then you give them your presentation and make them wait. And that anticipation, if they wait to the end, you've caught a lot more of your customers. So the open hook is to make sure people are going to stay with you and not continue strolling. I don't know about you, but I go through many webinars and freebies, and halfway through, click, turn it off. I'm bored. I've heard it before. There's nothing new to their story. Or I go and see their freebie and I download a page and I'm like, this doesn't give me really much information. And the first thing I do is I go to my emails and unsubscribe, because as soon as you give your email, they're starting to send you emails. So it's a complicated world. How do you capture them? Give them as maximum as possible in your hook so that people will stay. So the hook is how to learn. It's all about your ideal client. And we'll talk about the business pitch in a moment. And Nadine obviously will smile when we talk about the value proposition, because it's all the same thing. It's just a different way of explaining things. The next point is your story. Okay, so you've captured the attention of your audience. You've captured the attention of your audience online. They've stopped. They're going to listen to you. What is your story going to be to make them stay? It's got to be an original story. It's got to be perhaps an original of yourself, but not your whole life story. You don't want to know all the things, but it could be one single point. I did this and this happened. And if that point and that story can illustrate what you're trying to explain from your hook, then it will slowly, it will be like a scene of your life, and then they will be more credible. It gives the authenticity to who you are. So why is this thing? I have a problem with my view. So why is this thing, this story, or this product important for what you're illustrating? Maybe you are the problem, or you've lived that problem a few years ago, and you're explaining how you came through that problem, how you came through that story to be able to go to the next point. And by showing them that you've actually done it, you've gone through that process, that you lived the problem, that you lived the differences, you will see slowly that they will give justification who you are, and that you've got certain credibility. In your story, you've got to help your customers to overcome and change their beliefs. So you need to shift their doubts. Am I worried? There might be internal doubts. I'm not good enough, or I've got an imposter syndrome. I'm not, I shouldn't be doing this course. I shouldn't be speaking. I shouldn't be teaching. I'm shy, I don't have a good voice, I don't this, I don't that. Those are internals. How can you help your customer or your client to overcome those hurdles? And then there's the external ones. My husband thinks I'm not good enough, or I'm not really an expert, so why should they believe me? So you've got to be able to, in your story, overcome them, saying, well, I didn't know about speaking, and I found myself on a TEDx stage, and then I decided that I had to learn, and I practiced, and over doing this and with that problem, I really actually understood. And I went and interviewed 5, 10, 15 people that did a TEDx talk, and they told me, and I resumed all of that together. So little by little, if you put the, how can I say, if you put the example to show that the customer that you're doing is, I'm not seeing it yet, but I'll do it this way. If you show the customer that your story actually shows that you've actually done that work, or you've been through that process, it gives you more credibility. You might need some social proof. What do I mean by social proof? Well, social proof is about testimonials. Now, you might have somebody that will say, yes, that person did a great job and she's, positive, but you might not have any at all. If you don't have testimonials to prove that you know what you're talking about, create them. Go out and find out how you could show that you've actually done that process, that you've gone through it. Look, I did this, and this is what happened, and this was the result. And you show your story and you share your story. It gives your real credibility and your authenticity. You can also cast doubt on other people's sayings or other people's way of talking. So for example, you hear somebody saying, oh, do this process and you will win 100,000, or you will earn lots of clients and you will make lots of money. You can say perfectly well, look, I'm not the perfect expert. I've managed to do this. I've had this success, but I'm not going to guarantee that that will happen for you. You've got to put in the work, but you put in doubt of what other people are saying, and you show that you are authentic. I like an anagram called HAIL. It's further down in my presentation, but I think it's the right moment to talk. So HAIL is just a way of presenting things. And if I take a pen, do I take a pen? Nadine will say yes. HAIL is honesty. Be honest when you're talking. If you show your authenticity, people love that. A is for authenticity. My board is moving. You can smile, be real. Integrity, stand to your values. So When I lost my company, I must say that when I lost it, because I went, the company unfortunately had a liquidation, I felt that it didn't matter, it wasn't my fault. I was true to my values. I didn't want to go down certain roads and certain projects and the way that they were managed. So I refused those projects, and that's why my company didn't get certain clients, and we lost the turnover, and then the company finally, we had to close it down. And love. Hail is also, there's the love, the L for love. I should put a big heart here. Because if you do things with love, authenticity, your natural, people, they're much more appreciative than if you're a robot. We're all natural. So I like to have my little hail in there. So I'll come back to, we were on the hook. How do you get clients? You've got to understand what your clients are looking for. It's really important. Try to find out, ask them questions, phone them up, send them messages, try to get all this information to learn what is his fears and what talks to him, what makes him want to stop and listen to you. The story. You share your story, how you went through the process, show them how you've done that. I say the bridge, showing them how you got to the optimal results. So the bridge, we need to deliver a call to action. Ask people to do something. You've got to do it confidence. If you do a beautiful presentation and then at the end of your presentation, you're asking people to go and buy your book or your record, but you're hesitant, people are not going to buy it. You should be happy to be selling or to giving your next step in your presentation. If you cast doubt on what you're doing, then your clients, your audience are not going to follow. So the bridge is to help you transition to the call to action. You create confidence, like, did you like what I've told you today? Well, that's the tip of the ocean. There's actually a whole iceberg underneath, and I'd love nothing more than to show you all of that. Join my course, do something. You could say, did you like what I've showed you? Well, if you want help to be guided on the next steps, I can hold your hand and take you through the process. Join me on my course. So give them some idea of, okay, you've given them something, but there's a lot more behind if they want to go further. And be proud of what you're selling. I'm really excited to show you my German class with speaking German on my process. So you'll be chatting away in no time at all, or you'll be able to order coffee when you're in Germany, or you'll be able to do your business. Whatever you're showing, whatever you're proving to them, make them feel that you're excited to show your savoir-faire, your knowledge. Because if you're happy to show that, then they're going to say, oh, well, I enjoy it. Or maybe I will go further. In fact, I do need somebody to help me through the process, because accountability is one of the biggest problems when we're selling online, because people are not always doing the work. So the bridge takes us to the call of action. Tell people what you want them to do. People are not going to guess. And we women, and I'm not sure if we've got any men looking to us on Facebook, but we women have a tendency to think that they're going to know what we want. We've done so much hard work in the office that we think our boss is going to be proud of us and give us a raise. But if we don't go and ask for that raise, we won't get it. So call to action is you've got to tell people, like me. If you want people to like what you've said, please go ahead and like what my comment, or subscribe to my podcast. People want to know how they're going to feel and what are the results. So when you are selling something, don't tell them the technical side. Oh, when you get this course, you're going to benefit from being able to do A, B, and C. No, when you do A, B, and C, you're going to feel so powerful and so strong that you'll be teaching out there with such passion that people and clients will be flowing to you. Make people feel that if they do your course, or they buy your product, or they engage in your project, It's because they are feeling fabulous, that is what they really want. And what is the results they're going to get? What is the outcome? You're going to be feeling, you're going to be a professional speaker, you'll be speaking with confidence, you'll be with strength. So people want to know where you're taking them. There's all the standards, guarantee, money back, bonus, urgency. Be true to your word. If you're going to close something on midnight at 12 o'clock, close it at midnight, 12 o'clock. Don't let things go on and on. I was frustrated because when I did this course, I said, you know, signups was for until this day. And I had people knocking on the door saying, I want to do your driver's course. I can watch it afterwards. But I said, no, I've put them on a waiting list, because if I don't put a barrier to what I've said, then my word is not believable. So you have to put a barrier, and you have to respect the delays. If your question answers is 1 hour, just do 1 hour. I'm fortunate not to have a very big group, or unfortunate, it depends. But there are some people that have got groups doing this course with 1,000 people. How do you answer all the questions? You don't. You take a choice and you still close after 1 hour. Solve the limiting beliefs. The obstacles. Well, I can't afford it. Can you offer a payment in several options? Oops, I'm doing ums and ahs there. That's not good, right? So if they have a limiting obstacle, like my father tells me that I'm not good enough, or that I can't do this, or my voice is not good enough, try to give them solutions to how they're going to overcome. And then tell them to do things in a simple way. Bring down your language so that a 12-year-old can understand, especially when we're speaking in public. It's important that your language and the terms you use are simple. Even if you're in a technical or a physical, or how can I say, a biochemical process where you're talking of something that's very technical, try to bring down the language for those that don't understand that technical side. Or you are addressing an audience that is only your audience for that technical language. Otherwise, try to keep it simple. And then if you can give them an accountability, if you can say, right, well, I'm expecting this and I'd like this from you, people will, their action, they'll say, okay, right, I've got to sign, I've got to do it by this day. They know what they have to do. So the call to action has to be very, very clear. Don't be frightened to say, buy my course, do this, do that, because people like to be told what to do. Not everybody's going to be a leader. Some people need to be following the rules, follow the structures. Remember the personality types, the blue people who like the structure and the organization. So there's many blue people out there. If nobody knows about personality types, you can check up on Google and look for what is my personality. I will add it into the course, a little link where you can find out what is your personality. Because knowing who you are, but knowing how other people function is better for them to be able to give your call to action. So now I'm going to talk about the entrepreneur's elevator's pitch. As I said, the elevator pitch is something that you need to be able to say in 1 or 2 minutes. It's very concise. From an entrepreneurial point of view, if you're in the innovation field, you've got to be solving a problem. You've got to be telling how you're solving that problem and what are the extra goodies that you're going to get. You always take your customer from a journey of pain to a journey of happiness. And we'll talk next week about frameworks and how you present things and how you organize your presentations. But there's a framework for the entrepreneur, which is called the value proposition. And now some of you here know this very, very well. But I realized that the value proposition, you can actually apply it to many things. So I'm going to put it up, but I will show it to you. I will put it in the notes next week. I have, I'm not sure you can see this. Can you see this? No, you can hardly see this, so it doesn't matter. The value proposition, and I'm not doing a class on value proposition today, so let's be very clear, but it's something that entrepreneurs use. I'm going to see if I can bring in the camera to explain a bit better. But basically, and this is, as I said, I'm not explaining the value proposition. It is a free tool which you can find on the internet, and I actually have a course on the value proposition. But to understand is you try to understand what is the customer, what is my ideal client. You're going to discover what is his problems and his pains, and what would be his dream solution. What would he love to find? So we have the round, which is to discover and understand the client. And then what are you going to propose? So what are the pain relievers? We have like a pill here to explain how you solve the pains that he's got here. So how he's going to solve his pains. And what are the gain creators? What are those little extra little things that you're going to add so that your product, your service is solving and bringing the dream of the client to the table. So I have a student who wants a school bag that doesn't want to carry the school bag because it's heavy. His idea would be the school bag follows him on his own. How do I find it? Well, I found a school bag that's on wheels, or I've actually found a school bag that can follow with a drone behind you, whatever. I mean, I'm talking of maybe a silly example, but the idea is that the business world, the entrepreneurial world, use this framework, which is called the value proposition canvas. It's by Strategizer. It's a canvas that was actually created in Switzerland by one of D.R.I.V.E.R, and I never remember the second name. Alexandra, is that right? Alexander something?
Alex Osterwalder is the student, D.R.I.V.E.R is the professor, but the one which is successful is the student, Alex Osterwalder.
Right. Okay. But I teach this to many different people, but I realized that you can actually apply this to your speech. You can apply this to what you're going to talk, because you're trying to find out what your client wants. So if we're talking about a German class, what the client wants, what is his problems? He can't speak German. He wants to be able to order a beer, and how he's going to solve it, and how your course is going to help him solve it. So the value proposition, this framework, is something that's very interesting, not just for the entrepreneurial world. And when we're talking about a business pitch, your pitch comes down to, I've seen that there's this problem out in the world, and I know that we'd like to solve it, and I found the solution. The bigger the problem that you're solving, the more opportunities you have to have a successful business. So when we were in the middle of the pandemic, the laboratories were fighting like crazy. It was to find the injection or the solution to the COVID, or the COVID injection or vaccination. Because by solving that, they were going to solve a world problem that was very big, and everybody put their money and everybody put their time, and the government supported the laboratories to be able to find that vaccination as quickly as possible. And it was a record to find it. They also made a lot of money. So think of this value proposition that you can also bring it in, not just in a business pitch. Obviously, if you're talking in a business pitch, you might be asking for investors. So if you're asking investors, make sure that you're clear what you're asking. I'm going to give you 20% for $1 million investment in this project, and the earnout or the projection or the exit is valued at 3 times this, that, and the other. People in the investment world want figures. Obviously, if we're selling something else, then it's not necessarily figures, but people want the outcome. If you invest in my company in 3 years' time, you're going to be able to make 5-fold. If you do this project, the ROI, the return on investment is going to be 3 times what you invested, and you're going to get that in 6 years. You show them the outcome. You show them what you're going to do, but you're also showing the solution. With using my product, we're going to solve this problem for so many people. There was a lovely project that I'm always inspired when I talk about or when I hear in the entrepreneurial world. It was about two students who were creating gloves for people who speak with sign language. Because when people speak with sign language, not everybody understands sign language. So their solution was gloves that would bring out the message of the sign language on an iPhone or on a mobile phone. Now, can you imagine the success and how many people they were reaching because of that? And it's by telling people what you could do, how you're going to help them, that people are interested. So the elevator pitch for an entrepreneur, you've got to show them that you've solved a problem, that you've taken them from their pain to their happiness with your product. And guess what? They're getting some extra goodies for it as well. And this isn't an entrepreneur course, but I find that everybody talks of a hook, a story, and a call to action. We also have it in the entrepreneurial world, and it can be applied to many things. Storytelling is another speaking process. When you explain your story and you share what happened and how you got there. So when I talked about the hook, the story, and the call to action, storytelling is part of it. But you can share your story, and you could just do a speech on one of your stories, how you got up after a failure, how you started to run when you've lost your legs. You know, we hear many inspiring stories, but it makes it human. And when it's the hail, when you've got all of these points, people are always interested to understand more. People like stories. So sharing an intimate story that can illustrate your point or can illustrate your action. I couldn't speak French. When I arrived, I actually was studying in Spain, and I was very young and I had a lot of fun. It was in Spain in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s. I didn't study very well, and I was asked to leave the college. So I came back to England and I was asked to study French. Like, I didn't speak French at all. And I said, well, now you're going to have to learn. And I did. I learned French, I studied French, I did my business degree, I finished in France, and I'm now fluent in French. The story was that I had a tough time. It was really hard learning French, being in France, and I lived with two French girls, and they would speak to me all the time in French. And we didn't have our mobile phones. We couldn't speak to mum and dad on the iPhone. I'd have to go and wait at the corner of the road at 12 o'clock on Sunday to get the call from my mummy to be able to say, Mama, I'm so tired of speaking French. I'm so glad to be able to speak Spanish to you. So learning a language is tough, but practice being in the deep end. I think swimming, the best way to swim is when you can't put your feet on the ground. And I think the same with a language. So sharing your story makes you more authentic. Networking. How do you go about networking? You have to present yourself. You might be in a cocktail with your glass, and there's all these people around, and you're like, who am I going to talk to? What am I going to say? Are they going to think I'm credible? Did I bring my business card? Oh my goodness. And you can ask yourself loads of questions. Just go and ask people. So you can say, what did you think of the conference? Hello, my name is, I do this. Introduce yourself, and then let them introduce themselves. If you're nervous, the best way to say, so sometimes we have badges, so you can look, and I'm, you know, one of these ladies with glasses. I look, oh, your name is Nadine. So Nadine, tell me, what do you do? You know, and immediately I've caught her attention because I mentioned her name. So if you have name tags, use them. You can even use the name tags for the servers who are serving the cocktails. You say, oh, Peter, can you bring over the drinks here? And the lady's like, oh, you know him? I was like, no, but I read his badge. And then everybody starts laughing, but you've broken the ice. So be natural, introduce yourself, and then get others to talk. So tell me, what do you do? Why did you come to this conference? Did you like what they said? Oh, I disagree entirely. You can, you can push people to get their opinions on what they liked or what they not liked. Listen. When you're networking, it's really important to listen. A lot of people love to talk about themselves. So if you're somebody who's a little bit shy, and I'm not shy, I talk a lot, but I realize that in these moments, I have to shut up. Like, Helen, shut up, don't say anything, ask them and let them talk. Because they will start telling you who they are, what they're doing, and you can understand better who you're actually speaking to be able to eventually, if you want to push into a sale or if you want to push into a mode of that person might be interesting for a project, then you can say something. But you can't say anything or ask or demand anything if you have not understood who your audience or those people around you. So we're not talking about a big stage, we're talking about 2 or 3 people. Could be ladies, could be gentlemen. If you see a group of men, go up to them, say, excuse me, we need a little bit of diversity in this conversation. Can I join you? They'll be a little bit shocked, but be friendly. Adapt yourself to the other person. Do you agree? Do you not agree? What is your opinion? Tell me your point of view. I'd love to hear your opinion. Tell me more. Even in a meeting, when you've given a presentation, you can ask what you think. Is there any comments? Should I improve? Should I change something on what I'm saying? So you can take people through a process. Interruptions. Some people have a lot of energy and can't help interrupting. I know that's one of my faults. So I try to keep myself toned down. I put a pin in my pocket which I can feel. And it's like, don't say anything, Helen, wait, don't interrupt. And if you do have to interrupt because your boss said, oh, we're meeting on Tuesday and you thought the meeting was on Wednesday, apologize. It's very English. Oh, I'm sorry, but I thought the meeting was on Wednesday. May I add? Can I add something? Obviously, we're in a formal context. So networking conferences can be fun, but what I would definitely tell you is to please find out who's there. Who are the companies or the people that you're looking for? Today we've got LinkedIn. Some of conferences, not everybody, but some conferences give you the list of people that are going. Check it out. Prepare. Oh, who's that? Oh, that's that company. Oh, well, I'm interested in that company. Now, what is their role? They don't give you the role. They might just give you the company and the name. So go onto LinkedIn, do your Google search, and then visualize that person. Say, right, when I get to that conference, I want to meet A, B, and C. And make sure at the end of your conference, you've met your A, B, and C. Because if you just flit and talk and flutter through, you're not creating a basis for yourself as a business. So you need to be able to be working on where you're going, who you want to meet, what you want to do. There's always that outcome of what you want to do in your networking. So prepare. It's always preparation, 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 practice, practice, practice. And you can practice how you present yourself. Hello, my name is Helen. Hello, hello, I'm Helen. Hello, I'm Helen. Keeping the tone, keeping the voice. What do I want them to know who I am? Am I a business coach? Am I digital? Am I Spanish? Am I a mom? Obviously, it depends. If you're in different contexts, you adapt your presentation to the people that are going to be there. If you're going to a Wednesday coffee or to the church coffee after mass, you're not going to be talking about business. You might be talking about your family. You might be talking about yourself. What you want to share, what you don't want to share. So networking at conference can be fun. And we've all missed it because of COVID. We were not around very much. So getting out and about, there's a lot of visual and it's nice to meet and it's really comfortable. You don't have to get the train, but you never know on the train who you can meet. I always meet people on the train because I always speak to them and say hello. Feedback. Giving feedback needs to be obviously constructive. Now, we can give positive feedback, that was really good, But if everybody tells you that what you've done is good, it doesn't really help you. So what you want is some constructive feedback to say, well, this was good, I really like that, but maybe you could improve this, your positioning, your voice, your posture, some feedback that is constructive for the other person. And you don't take it personally. If somebody says, no, that was not good, it's not that you're not good, it's that what you did at that moment wasn't the best, it wasn't optimal. Now, we're all very critical of ourselves. Oh, I wasn't good, I did this, I did that, I keep repeating. But first of all, let's be gentle on ourselves. We're all doing the best we can. And so when giving some feedback to somebody, say something positive, give something general, and then you can go into, so we call it the sandwich effect, where you put the nice bread and then you put something that's quite meaty, and then you put something on the bottom again, which is going to give a softer landing. So if, for example, you need to say that the presentation wasn't optimal, you can say, well, I found that in this presentation, you were missing this type of information. I was expecting to get this and I didn't see it coming, but no worries. I'm sure the next time you'll take this into consideration and make sure that the presentation does this. And somebody said to me, they were looking for something visual. I've given it to them, so I've improved. We can all improve ourselves. And it's with that feedback that we improve ourselves. So if we don't allow people to give us, if we don't say that we're open, you know, if you're too closed with everything, you give a standoff effect. How will people be open to helping you? Or because everybody wants to help, everybody wants to make things better for others. So feedback is to encourage them for the next time to improve, or to find a solution, or to, that was great, I enjoyed that, but I feel that you could have done this. Always this idea of a sandwich effect. Nice, meaty, and then a soft landing at the end. So that's when you're talking of feedback. Another presentation is an interview. I gave quite a few interviews when I was an employer, and you see them arriving, and some of them, you know, some employers are quite difficult. I believe today the process is extremely complex, and for high positions, they're going to ask you perhaps personality tests, they're going to ask you to have to do a presentation. It's very tough today. The competition is rude, as they say. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to answer that question that you don't want to answer. You're hoping that nobody's going to ever ask you that question, but you must be prepared in your presentation, in who you are. If you know they're looking for A, B, and C, but he's got to have E and D as well, or D and E, make sure you have an answer and that you're going to present that you have the qualities of A, B, and C, and that you know what D and E qualities are because you've already done them elsewhere. An employer wants to know that you can bring solutions to the table. An employer wants to know that you answer his requests. Now, I understand today that the process is very complex, but if you find yourself in an interview, make sure you've learned what are they looking for, what are the problems they may have, and how could you bring some solutions to the table? Because if you come to that employer saying, right, well, I know that you want to do a transformational change, and I've seen that in your teams, you've got this going on. However, I feel that the transformational change could be done with this sort of process. You're already showing that you're competent for that job. Learn, do your homework, prepare. But it's the same for everything, for a business pitch, for a speech, for an interview, for a video conference. You need to prepare, you need to practice. You can't just walk in with your hands in your pocket. So we're coming to the end of this session, and I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. I want you to write down, and this is for you. You can share it with me if you want, a direct message, if you want to share in the group. Write down what your project or what you're trying to do your speech about. So if it's a sales call, did I do the sales? I talked about the sales, didn't I? Yes. A sales course, yeah, it's the CTA. It's what are you getting people to talk about? The elevator pitch, networking, yeah, sales. So when you're going through a process to sell somebody, you're trying to find out what are their problems, how are you solving it, and what you want them to do to be able to improve. So for us in our homework, I want you to write down your speech of how you're going to present yourself or how you want to present your business. And what is the call of action that you're asking your customer or your client or your audience to do? Are you really clear on what you want them to do? And do you feel comfortable asking them to do that? Frame it with your hook, your story, your call to action. And you can send that over. I will this afternoon. Today I've got a tight day because I'm running off to a meeting, but I will send today, by the end of the day, I will send the PDF of what we talked about, which is not just being hail, but it's the advice from the driver's seat. So how are we advising others in our work? How are we getting their attention? How are we giving them, how we're defining their problem because we've understood their problem. We know that they have A, B, and C that they want to solve. We're going to give them the visualization of their goal. So by doing this, you're going to get there and you're going to illustrate the pathway. You're going to show them the bridge of how you're going to get there. You're going to solve any queries that they may be asking. You have pre-prepared those questions in advance and you're going to engage in their action. You're going to ask them, I want you for this date to give me some action. So maybe on our question and answers on Thursday, you can give us that speech and see if you can share it with others and we can give you some feedback on who you are. So we're coming to the end and our last week will be next week, which will be about how we transmit to the T of the driver's seat. And I'm going to be talking on the actual PowerPoint, avoiding death by PowerPoint. By stop using bullet points. Bullets is not good, especially in a moment of war. Let's think of bullet points as not something good. We're going to talk about how we create a framework that allows people to visualize your solution in a better way. And finally, how to convince in our speaking with pride and confidence. So I've taken you through a large vision on the speaking program of the driver's seat. We have a few minutes left. Has anybody got any questions? Although we'll be answering them on Thursday. Is that a clear picture of where we're going with our driver's seat then? We feel comfortable on how we're going to capture the attention and give them solutions to what they're looking for. It's all the same as entrepreneurial in speaking as well. All right. So thank you so much for your
one little question for you, Helen.
Yes,
Hello.
Diana, thank you.
What about those types of businesses like mine, which require more discreet approach towards your results? How do you advise on getting testimonials in my area of activity or others?
When you're talking in the courtroom, or is it no, you're German speaking, is that right?
No, not about German speaking. Testimonials from previous clients that you spoke about.
Yes.
During the course. What about these types of businesses like lawyering or maybe medicine, where you cannot expose somebody else's case, somebody else's? So
okay, I understand.
Any advice on this?
When you're not going to be talking about the context of your clients, but you might have solved some solutions for them. So you have to say, I had a client, and then you have to obviously generalize, change the name, change the situation, say, you see, I'm not sure which law you're in, if it's family law or if it's business law. Or it's business law.
Mostly business law.
So you can talk of a business problem and that you help to solve with your customer without necessarily saying who it's about. you can say, right, well, one of my customers, she had a patent problem, or she had a contract problem with her employees. The contract was not properly written, and so we helped her get through to be able to change to do. You see, so you would show the outcomes of what you've done without necessarily asking the client, say, oh, she was really good for us.
I see.
But you can also ask your customer, were you satisfied with the work that we did? Or would you like to give a testimonial? If they're happy with the work that you've done, they should be able to say, well, we used Mrs. Purser for a project. We had a problem, and Mrs. Purser managed to bring the solution to the table with adversary, and we solved it with very little expenses, or the process was solved rapidly. Because one of the biggest problems, excuse me, one of the biggest problems in law is that we feel that lawyers take processes very long. So if you can show that, you know, the work that you did brought a closure to a situation quite rapidly, then that's something interesting for a customer, because lawyers, sometimes people are frightened that with a law process, it's going to take a long time, and that it's going to be complicated and it's going to be costly. So
it is, it always is. It's lengthy and costly. It's always like this in every law system that I've studied.
And some people don't want to take on a lawyer because they know it's going to cost them money, and they can't afford it, or they don't want to afford it. But maybe there's an outcome from the long term that if you didn't take a lawyer, the process could have gone on for longer. It could have been more complicated. You have to give them, you're going to have to explain to them that, yes, there is an initial cost, but that the outcome is worthy of that investment, and that you're helping them solve a problem that perhaps on their own they wouldn't have been able to do. So I think it is complex in the world of lawyers, but you're not going out looking for your customers, or are they coming to you?
Yes, they select. I don't sell, they select me from other lawyers.
Okay, so how are they selecting you? What is the process? Why do they choose you compared to somebody else?
Well, on word of mouth, sometimes, or repeated customers who return to me because I work with companies and they have legal issues again and again. I think that's how it works in this area of law.
Well, definitely.
It's not like family law when people divorce once and they are not repeated customers, but in business law, they come back.
Okay, so your question is how to make loyal certain customers and perhaps gain others, so word of mouth. But I think one of the biggest selling points in law would be that you get to solve and resolve the problems of your clients rapidly with minimal investment costs, because that for me would be a seller. I'm interested because she's going to get to the point. She's not going to go round. She's not interested. And I don't know if you say, I'm not interested in clients, I've got plenty lined up. What I want is to help my clients solve their problems in a good way, in a structural way. It would open. But the fact that you're smiling and you're somebody that bienveillant, the word in French is bienveillant, is they mean there's somebody that's open and you want to work with. So it's showing that you're a nice person to work with. But
on the long term, yes, it helps.
But I think your testimonials can be made. Either you can make them your story, you can make the story of the testimonial, or you can ask a customer to say, listen, I know we did this work and we did it in such a short time. Could you possibly do a little video to explain without going into the context? And you can hide the name, or you can hide the company name.
For a testimonial. Never, ever.
Never, ever.
No.
Okay.
But maybe I will from now on.
I think you could at least ask for the outcome. Were you satisfied in the process? Was the timing interesting? Get them to come back on the structural side, not on the content, because obviously the content is very private. So
thank you. It was helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? We've come to 11 o'clock, but definitely you can say that the company and in the sector that you worked and say, my client from a corporation in the industry of petrol or in the industry of chemistry was very pleased because blah, 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 blah.
That's what I say when we merge and acquisition. We say, you cannot say this one bought this one. What we said that was a successful in the area of I don't know what.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I will see you. You have another question, Nadine?
No, it was just that I gave you something in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have my chat open.
It's a quote from Thomas Edison.
Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Yes. So preparation, right? You have to work at it. You definitely have to work at it. I'm sorry, I didn't have the chat open, so I've just seen it now. Okay. All right. Well, thank you folks for being here, and I'll see you perhaps on Thursday. Have a good day. Have a wonderful week. And don't forget to put any questions or anything in the group. Bye.